All right, thank you everybody for joining this new session organized by the Global Supply Chain Council. My name is Max Henry. I'm going to be your co-host today for this session. And the theme of this discussion is all around supplier relationship management. And we called it Revolutionizing Supplier Relationship with Strategies for 2025. So some of you are aware and are following us on a regular basis. This is going to be an interactive session. We want to, again, give you the chance to hear best practices and experience from different industry leaders on this topic. And today I'm joined by one of my good friend and co-host, Snigdha Verma, to help me with the discussion. Hi, Snigdha, how are you?
Hi, Max. Thanks for having me here and for the wonderful opportunity to co-host. Hi, everyone in the live audience. We are excited to hear your questions and comments on the topic.
Great. So as I mentioned earlier, again, this is going to be an interactive session. So again, if you have any question from our live, for our live panelists, feel free to again click on the question mark button located at the bottom of the screen. We will prioritize those questions, so feel free to ask at any time, and we'll make sure to answer those questions as they come. So before we get started with our own topic, maybe I'll give a chance to our panelists to quickly introduce themselves, so you can understand who they are. So maybe we'll start with you, Lamiaa, and we can go around the screen. So make sure to unmute. Yeah, welcome. Go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you, Max, and thank you, Snigdha. And nice to see everyone here, the fellow panelists and the live audience. So my name is Lamiaa Bennis. I'm born in Morocco, but I've had 20 years in supply chain and logistics across Asia. I'm more an Asian person, like with 6 years in China, 9 years in Indonesia, and the rest is in Estonia. I'm based here in Estonia. Over.
Great. Thank you very much, Lamiaa. Okay, we also have Nita joining us. Hi, Nita. Make sure to unmute. Yeah. Just unmute yourself. Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead, Nita. You are unmuted. Yeah. Okay, I think Nita has. Okay, Nita, can you hear us? Okay, all right. We're moving on. Let's get Peter to introduce himself. Peter, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, hi everyone. Great to meet you. I'm Peter Bainbridge. I've been in the supply chain from the top to the bottom of the supply chain, I think, for over 25 to nearly 30 years now. So yeah, lived in a bunch of different countries and dealt with a lot of different people and had a great journey. Currently with a company called Quadlock that does phone cases and mounting systems for bikes, motorbikes, cars, basically any leisure activity you've got, we do that. So yeah, great to be a part of this panel and looking forward to sharing thoughts.
Okay, great. Also, we have Nanda joining us. Welcome, Nanda. Go ahead. Yeah, make sure to unmute. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Max and Snigdha. Thanks for having me here and for the wonderful opportunity. I'm a global supply chain and operations leader with a diverse background working in various sectors across various countries in Europe, Africa, Middle East, China, and also North Americas. I'm based in Norway. I live in Bergen.
Okay, great. Good to see you. We have also Anne joining us. Hello, Anne. Make sure to unmute. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Just unmute yourself. Click on the microphone.
Hello.
Yeah,
hello everyone. I'm Anna.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, with more than 15 years working in supply chain logistics. I landed many companies like FMCG, food and beverage, and now I'm working for the labels and Sikka in Avery, Dennison, Vietnam. So joining this forum helps to sharing my thought and sharing my experience, knowledge, and exchange it. Looking forward to the world with the fasting developing now. Nice to meet all of you. Hello.
Yeah, we have also Sheldon joining us. Welcome, Sheldon. Go ahead. Yeah.
Hi, Max. Hi, everybody. Yes, 25 years procurement, supply chain, emphasis around SRM, actually. It's been a personal love of mine. Currently London-based, also travel extensively, US, Far East, Europe, Middle East, been everywhere, private sector, public sector, procurement activity. Practitioner for many years, now also CEO of something I'm very proud of, SRM, Suppeco SRM. So I'm heading up a vendor as well as working as a practitioner. So brings a couple of additional views. Lovely to be here. Thanks all.
Okay, we have also Nita. So let's give it a try again with Nita. Make sure to unmute, Nita.
Hi, Max. Can you hear me?
It's working. Yeah, no problem.
Sorry, I've been facing a challenge. Good morning or good afternoon in all the regions. This is Nita Nair. I have had the privilege of being the founder member of procurement function in my organization. I have been based out of the GCCs all my life, last 30 years. Currently managing the transformation in Saudi Arabia. I have had the privilege of setting up all the frameworks, the SRM framework, the spend analytics, all from the scratch because, basically there was nothing in the organization to start from.
Okay, great. All right, so let's, I would like to get started with some of the topics that we have prepared. And I want to start simple. I would like to maybe each of you to kind of try to define what supplier relationship management is in 2025 and how maybe your approach has changed over the past few years. So again, this is an open question just to kickstart and set the context around this topic. Yeah. Anybody would like to start?
Happy to.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
For you say last 3 or so years using COVID as a bit of a baseline kind of works quite well as a bit of a water, a bit of a cutover, doesn't it? Major change since then because whereas most companies were very, I'd say, transactional going into that point with a certain mindset around supply chain being very much seen as an overhead. When COVID happened, obviously it had a bit of a knockout effect on everything. Supply chain flatlined, and there was an absolute need to look at things differently because being transactional, very heavily contract orientated, but those contracts really not worth the paper they were written on at that point in time. It was the relationship that was the saving grace for many organizations. So that in itself forced the issue in many, many ways. So for me, it's a great opener, Max, because I think the current environment is very welcoming. The global landscape is very welcoming of SRM today. It's very much a growth industry. So I'm going to stop right there and leave it open.
Anybody else on how do you define SRM? Yeah, feel free to unmute. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Peter.
Yeah, look, from my point of view, I agree with what Sheldon said. Obviously, COVID really highlighted the need for relationships with vendors and suppliers. I think, that kind of has always been my approach, to be honest, but I think it heightened it during COVID. So, yes, you can buy from suppliers, you can try and drive for the lowest cost, but when you need extras and when you need to align your strategies together as companies, that relationship becomes really, really important. So couldn't agree with Sheldon more. And I think COVID pushed the agenda even more. So I agree 100%.
Okay, anybody else would like to add? Yeah, Nanda.
Thanks. I forgot what to say. I would say two things key in the last few years about the supplier relationship management. One is it's become more risk predictive collaboration. And then the second thing is it's no longer just a oversight. It is more like a strategic integration. So we are choosing suppliers not just for some based on audits, but we are looking at long-term and co-development aspects, and it's also risk predictive. So that's I would say these are the two big changes in the last couple of years, especially as Sheldon mentioned and Peter also said, post-COVID. I think these things have changed.
Okay, great. Yeah, Lamiaa, go ahead. Yeah.
Yes, actually what I would like to add to what Sheldon, Peter and Nanda have mentioned is really a practical one, which is about how do you select these suppliers with whom you are going to develop strategic relationship. And actually something really changed indeed during the COVID-19 pandemic, and then actually now with Red Sea crisis, and we may see more like around Taiwan, etc. So how to select those? So typically, we have this ABC. You organize, you check your inventory, and you classify ABC, and you would really focus on the A one. But then it appeared I had this very, very surprising finding when I was working on Jamaica in 2021. So in the heart of the COVID-19 crisis, and I was talking with manufacturers in Jamaica because they were making food products, and they were telling me their challenge was packaging. And I was like, "What do you mean by packaging?" Basically, most of their packaging was coming from China, and the ships were stuck in the middle of the sea. And who would have thought? So I think really the COVID-19 really made companies, manufacturers to really realize, to see really where is the bottleneck, and our traditional, ABC way of organizing, then that would need to be reviewed. Over.
Yeah, thank you. All right, Nita, you would like to add something? Just unmute yourself and we can hopefully hear you. Just click on the microphone, Nita. Okay, I think Nita is not hearing us again. All right. Okay, so let's move on to our next question. I would like to maybe, if you can briefly describe the structure of your supplier base today so people can understand where you guys come from. How many are considered to be strategic, and or maybe give us a percentage, and what's changed in how you manage those relationships? Anybody would like to take on that question?
Yeah, well, I can start. Sorry, Peter, you can go ahead. You raised your hand.
It's all good. It's all good. Look, from our point of view here at Quadlock, we have obviously phone cases are our biggest product, but we've also got mounts and all that sort of thing. So we look at phone cases as definitely strategic. We rely on them because we aim to release our cases before or around the same time new phones are released. So we rely on the supplier's network of connections to get us iPhone designs and new phone designs before the phone actually comes out. So, that is a real strategic alignment. Further to what Nanda was saying, it's a strategic partnership because we rely on them not just to make products, but for intelligence and design tips and all that sort of thing. So in terms of how we classify them, I would say we've probably got 5 really strategic suppliers that we sit down with and map out what the year looks like, talk about strategies, talk about the ways we can improve and work together. And the rest of them, probably we would bunch a bit more strategic, a bit more transactional. My apologies.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, Nanda, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Thanks. I think when it comes to structure, we still have this Pareto mindset. A few target or strategic suppliers and Thailand suppliers, and then focusing on long-term agreements and executive level reviews, KPIs, etc. But fundamentally, what has changed is the definition of the term strategy. It's no longer based on strategy. It's no longer based on spend or volume or those things. It's now based on business continuity, ESG compliance, the co-development ability. So we are looking at those kind of suppliers to sort of partner with. However, one thing there's still opportunity for improvement is what I would call as co-functional development. So it's still based on engineering, talking to supplier silos. Purchasing is entering at a different level of product introduction. So that sort of is in a transition phase. But I would say the most thing in the structure is the definition on the strategic or the target itself is changed.
Okay, great. Let me give it a try again. Yeah, let's get Sheldon, and then I'll give it a try again with Nita. I think, Nita, you can hear us, right now? It's working. Okay, I'll come to you after Sheldon, and we can, try again on your microphone. Sheldon, go ahead, yeah.
Good question, actually, Max. Something we've been looking at recently. So we work with supplier relationship management frameworks, and we know the kind of good practice industry-wide channels that live within one of those frameworks: data visibility, segmentation, governance, risk management, collaboration. Even digitalization is in your modern framework, and if it isn't, it really should be, with everything going on and digitalizing. That's great. You go and put those into a company. We all know Pareto, 20, 80, your top 20 suppliers are your 80% of your spend. It's a rule of thumb, obviously, but when you start applying that at a specific organization, they look at those generic channels and still it doesn't give them what they need, because the company is very nuanced in the way it sees its own strategy, its own criticality. And so for me, in order to answer that, you need to actually look at it's about looking at the framework, the generic best practice status, and running the maturity against that, certainly against how good you are, how advanced you are at risk management or governance. Segmentation, really important piece of work, because that is really, really telling. When you work segmentation, you really start to understand the granular detail of what is important to you, what is important to your organization and the departments, the stakeholder communities within the organization. They won't all see things the same way. Some organizations are born through, I don't know, where there's been lack of competition, almost a tactical necessity to grow, and they've grown in spite of themselves. It's only when, for example, competition enters the market, those sorts of markets, that suddenly the gaps start to appear, because when an organization has grown in spite of itself, it's often very unstrategic. It's just fallen over itself to make money. And then competition enters the market and suddenly the cracks appear because the money starts to slow. So that's when you really need to understand, what is it that we do want? Let's put some strategy behind this. And there's a full-blown exercise there, and it lives for me within segmentation. Let's really understand what is important to us. That way we can go beyond these throwaway Pareto statements and all that kind of stuff. It's all very, very generic, throwaway clickbait data, but segmentation at a very advanced level is what does it for me.
All right, thanks, Sheldon. Nita, yeah, let's give it a try. Make sure to unmute and go ahead. And if you can, respond on this, click on the mic, Nita. You're still muted. Yes, go ahead. Try. No? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry about my technical issues there. I've actually kept the voice open on the other one also. So yeah, basically for me, the SRM starts from the category planning. So I don't know whether everybody will agree with this. So more of it from a supply relationship starts in-house. What is it that you need? What is it? How do you want the resilience or agility to be built across a particular service that you want to deliver? And then plan the 360-degree complete circle around the service, how you want it delivered, bring the clarity with the suppliers and build a partnership along with them, giving them the vision of your reach. What is the end goal that you want to reach with this particular strategy that you're building around? So the more clarity you bring with the suppliers and try to make it a win-win situation, that is where we focus on our supplier relationship management and as well as segmentations. And collaboration is the key word. You have to have all the parties involved when you're doing your supplier relationship management. That's my take on it.
Anybody else would like to ask to add something on the structure of your supply base? Maybe Anne, do you have anything to add? Or Lamiaa?
Yeah. Yep, I just adding on the how to maintain or improve the supply relationship. I think that one of the things we are always think that the supplier must meet our our KPI expectation. But sometimes in my time of procurement, one of the big thing I want to do is the developing supplier. It's been that they come with us, they know nothing about our company, and like our new employee. So how can we develop them? Because they're developing is our benefit in cost, in service, everything. So I think one of the key things we can think about is how we develop them. Today they join us is with very low service, but we tell them what we need to improve. This is the company target vision and and I think that collaboration is important to make them more professional in our way. and we can reach them in the costing, servicing, even the lead time like logistics, supply or something like that. So my point is developing supply in one of the key things.
Okay, thank you, Anne. All right. Snigdha, you wanted to
Yeah.
add something, yeah?
Yeah, I have a question to the panelists that we are talking a lot about SRM strategy post-COVID, how it's shaped up the approach, and we're talking about how the supplier bases are strategic. Now we're trying to reshape that approach. We talk a lot about collaboration now, and then what's been the biggest challenge or the biggest learning for all of you in your respective company now that how you engage with your suppliers in this post-COVID or post-globalization era? Anyone in the panel?
I'll take that. Nita.
Go ahead, yeah.
So COVID basically gave us the foundations in terms of trying to understand the risk factors. But if you see, even after COVID, now we are facing a lot of pandemic challenges. I mean, not the pandemic, but the geopolitical, the current situation of Iran and Israel. So I think we've all become very conscious in terms of identifying all sorts of risks. Okay, COVID was one of unusual scenarios, but I think we are now, in all our plannings, we are always ready to face any such challenges going forward. That is what we are putting in plan in our SRM strategies. So now I think we should be ready with any kind of risks that will come up.
That's interesting. Anybody who would like to add challenges from your respective organization and how you're differently approaching? Yes, Sheldon. Sheldon, maybe you can take over first.
Yes, thank you. And thanks, Nita. Just to extend on what you just said, COVID brought obviously a lot of realization. It wasn't just COVID, as you said, it hasn't stopped. It really hasn't stopped since. It's been a very different place. I mean, the Suez Canal was straight afterward. And then we've had, obviously, the war in Europe, now the war in the Middle East, cost of living crisis. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, and it's just been relentless. And one of the areas that has come out as a focus is how we engage with smaller companies within the supply chain. And one of the positive things that has come out of that is that we've looked at payment terms. We've looked at being more collaborative, not just about driving a better service. That's what it ultimately serves, obviously, driving a better service, but being more collaborative in the way that we engage with the SMEs, bring them along on the journey, be more understanding of their challenges, and that a lot of the time comes down to payment terms as well. So there's been a lot more flexibility around payment terms, amending contracts to be more flexible, a range of different offerings and collaborations to make the tracks a bit kind of smoother to run on, because there are so many small organizations out there servicing. The statistics are obviously 95% of organizations are small companies. So if you're dealing with a big company, the chances are they've got a load of smaller companies hanging off the back end. You just don't see them. And so this is a welcome thing, I would say. The collaboration focused around smaller companies makes so much of the global workforce and the global economy. So it's a welcome change.
That's a very interesting point. Lamiaa, you had to add something to it. Keen to hear your thoughts as well.
Thank you. I think Anli raised her hand before, and then I will complement.
Sure. Anybody who would like to add further to what Sheldon just mentioned or add your viewpoints?
Okay, if Anli is not going to come in. Sorry, I just gave a priority to Anli, but if she's not answering, I just want to put my foot on the plate, which is about, when there is growth, there are no problems. So, and a key issue in supplier management, actually, supplier relationship management, is about personal relationships between buyers and their suppliers. And I think we're all facing this, and I know this from very micro level company to the large multinational to state-owned companies. It's the same story. And so I just wanted to open actually a point about this, because when you have this existing relationship and then you have a crisis, then everybody, starts pulling. And I was just wondering how, the different panelists here have been, like, if they have been maybe looking at the situation, making changes, because then those that were still supplying but not delivering, how they handle it, especially when they have, in the inside, some personal relationships. So that was what I wanted to come in with, because this is really big issue, right, in supply management.
Very valid. Definitely, personal relationships do play a key role. And you wanted to add something to that?
You can go ahead, Sineha.
Okay. All right. So, Lamia, that's a wonderful point too that we have come to. Interesting, and it pertains to a longer discussion. Definitely, we'll take that up. Moving on to the question that we also had was the topic that we wanted to understand from all the panelists here is, can you briefly describe the structure of your current supplier base today, and how are you putting it as what are the practical steps that you're taking to make sure that it's resilient, diversified, and without adding to the cost complexity? While we talk a lot about 80-20 Pareto, etc., but how are you making sure the resiliency there is there and not making it too complex or cost heavy while we make the resiliency there? Nanda, would you like to take that question up?
Yes, I had a couple of points from the previous one also. I can probably integrate that here. So let's take a step back to the post-COVID era. So there are two key takeaways. One, I would say, as a learning, as you mentioned, it's that I think most of the companies have now realized that supply chain resilience is not built during crisis. It's a process. It needs to be built during calm times. So people have realized that. The second challenge is post-COVID or during COVID. So there was a shift on the supply chain structure from global reach into local sourcing for agility. And I think that was a good opportunity at that time. I think if I can speak for myself now, that has become also one of the challenges, because now people are so used to digital tools, and so gone are the days of physical audits, relationship building, reviews, meetings, on-site reviews. So it's the challenge now is to bring the balance between the local agility to global reach. So and that's people are so easy that you just have to call and say, okay, you do this, take my order, or give me an RFQ and take the order, kind of things. So the structure, the challenge, and add to that the new sectors which are emerging on the electrical mobility, where I'm currently on. So the product development is going at a very fast pace. So that means you cannot zero down on a supplier for long term, because the product itself changes, the technology changes. So if you have not overcome the challenge of getting back into your supplier relationship and global reach, you are kind of lost on that new product development happening elsewhere in the world. For example, anything related to battery, we have huge development going on in China, but previously we had some integrators of battery working in Europe, and then that was very easy for companies to sort of go to them and say, can you give us some batteries? But now we are growing and the technology is changing, but unless you go there and build relationships, you cannot. So the structure is very volatile now. Of course, there is a focus on the same Pareto, getting the target suppliers, but the target suppliers are shrinking. It's based because it's more technology driven now. It's no longer the earlier volume based and long-term contract based thing. Yeah, I would stop here, I think.
Fair enough. That's interesting as well. So, anybody who would like to further add to the how the resiliency is being built?
So I would like to add here, Snigdha. I totally agree with Nanda that during COVID time, we started moving from globalization to regional, but certain products, okay, where the quality of the global suppliers was there, it is difficult to build that quality in the regional partners. One of the key things that has happened post-COVID is service-based suppliers has become very we can source it from anywhere. So because of the online capabilities of all the suppliers, the service based has become very open. The market has become open. We can buy services from anywhere. It's only the products where we have to buy the products which were meeting the quality from a certain region. To build that resiliency was a challenge for us. So we are trying to, check this global suppliers if they want to come in the region and set up their companies and set up the quality of the same, deliver the same quality what is being manufactured across the globe. So we're trying to help them build their companies or build their capabilities in the GCC region. So we support them with finances, we support them with all sorts of possible, support that they may need. We being a bank. So we also offer them the banking facilities, the loan facilities, the financing facilities at a much competitive rates if it's in our interest to bring them in the region.
Wow, that's an interesting perspective and real true partnership that comes into way. Anybody else who would like to add to this particular discussion point in terms of how to build resiliency? Sheldon, please do.
Yeah, let me just get rid of the hand. I couldn't resist coming in, especially after listening to Nanda's comments as well. So I love the kind of references that he made. So when you look at pre-COVID, post-COVID, is one of the most profound things that in my view, that we can point to, because you've only got to look at one of the key metrics that came from COVID. 7 years of digital transformation, collaborative, focused around collaboration, obviously with Zoom, etc. Digital transformation, 7 years of transformation in the space of 3 months. That's mind-blowing when you think about it. Where would you see that? Where would you see it? And what's really interesting about that statistic is that it sits right within the heart of supplier relationship management, because collaboration is right at the center of SRM. So there's which is why for me, pre-COVID, post-COVID, as far as SRM is concerned, it was the most ridiculously informative or impactful change. It really was. So I just think I was just writing that down as you were speaking. This little graphic, pre-COVID, post-COVID, and the conversations that come from that. I think in terms of globalization has been helped, but then you've got all sorts of other issues that are moving us away from globalization in terms of a more regional supply chain. There are different forces at play here. The technology has helped, but then you've got geopolitical, not interference, but certainly challenges that are moving us against that. So it's a very, very interesting space, a very, very interesting subject, this particular subtopic. That's just wanted to add that. Not solving anything, but just very interesting point to raise. Thanks.
Okay, yeah. Maybe Lamia, you want to add something quickly, and then we can move to the live questions. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I would like to jump on something that actually Nita mentioned, is about a company acting as bank to its suppliers, if I understood correctly. And this actually comes to the last subject which we had, which is about supply chain finance. And so actually what Nita is mentioning, and also Sheldon mentioning, the focus on SME and on small companies. So actually by providing financing options, or at least the financial literacy to the supplier so that they can actually apply for funding, and especially with the focus on small companies, this is a strong way to build resilience, because small companies do not have enough cash. They are pulled by their customers asking for longer payment terms, and maybe their own suppliers asking for shorter payment terms, and then they're stuck even with the most basic operational costs. Therefore, I wanted to add this as supply chain finance, and actually solving the financial issues for small and medium-sized, like those fast-growing medium-sized companies, is a key to the resilience.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you very much again. So I want to remind all of you that, again, you can ask questions. I see some questions are already coming in, but if you want to ask your own question, if you have your certain problems or issues that you're facing when it comes to SRM or dealing with suppliers, feel free to click on the question mark button, which is located right at the bottom of the screen. You can click that. This will open the live Q&A tab, and then you can then see all the questions being posted, and you can also type your own questions. So let me first, I'm going to be spotlighting the questions one by one, and then you guys can hopefully see it, and then we can take those questions in order. So let's start with this question first with a question from Aisha, who's asking, how do you manage small local suppliers who don't have tech systems but are critical to operations? That's a good one from Aisha. Yeah, Peter? Yeah, go ahead. You can start, yeah.
From our point of view, Max, it's a great question. I mean, the big suppliers, the first tier suppliers, so to speak, they have a lot of these systems. You can communicate with them easily. With the smaller suppliers, we rely on our teams on the ground, and we rely on our teams that visit from Australia. So we have people going to the factories all the time, communicating, looking at the operations, helping them to grow. And I think it's a great point before when we talk about how can we help them and how can we elevate them. I think Nita was talking about that. From our point of view, it's boots on the ground. It's old-fashioned, but having people in the factories, helping them with their operations and observing them, that's how we manage it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Anne, you wanted to add something on this?
Normally, in my experience, that if the small supplier they don't have, but we always help out. Let's say that we send the people to guide, or we nominate one people to help out on the technological oriented. Let's say that if they don't have us, so our team, you build a very simple gate for them to input into IT, or guide them how to do the job that we need. So the sharing experience here is we can get our IT team to have, our staff to have, and coaching them, manage them, and controlling them to our targets and our goal that we want direct in a standard basis. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Nanda. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Now, this is what I was speaking earlier about developing local suppliers during COVID stage. So it's very important to know from organizations why a supplier has become critical to the operations. So what do they mean? Why is it critical? Is it because there is nobody else who can do that product? Or is it because they are so close, or because there is a relationship there? So all of this determines the next course of action, as Anne was mentioning earlier. It's all about supplier development. So tech systems, suppliers don't supply tech systems. They supply their product and services. And if you really need them, then you need to partner with them. And as much as you may get the product, they also earn their profit and their margin. So you need to sit down with them and probably chalk out a development plan where they sort of put back into their own companies for developing products, systems, or automations, and then you grow with them. If they are not up to it, then you need to resource. So we can't be stuck with local suppliers saying they're critical to operations, and then that becomes a lame excuse while you have professional and very good suppliers elsewhere to sort of engage. So this is the mindset I think I'm trying to say, that is to look at it, what else is possible, not just get stuck with one supplier.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, Sheldon. Yeah.
Trying to unmute. So one thing we've realised is that that we don't live inside a contract. We don't live inside any contract. Doesn't matter what size of company it is. We live inside the operational ether, where everything happens on a day-to-day basis, rather than inside the pages of a contract. That means that we need to focus on bringing those smaller organizations into that operation as well. We use technology that focuses on creating an equitable operational space for the entire ecosystem, brings them all in, gives them a voice, allows them to critique the bigger companies in the supply chain. It gives them a voice. That's key. If they're doing something critical, they don't necessarily have the resources. Let's face it, smaller companies, not just across the board, they're going to have fewer resources. But they are still nonetheless just as critical or as important to an operation. So it's important to bring them in, give them a voice, bring them in, make them part of the journey, give them visibility and accountability and ownership. All those things, very, very important, and they pay off.
Okay. Anybody else would like to add on this question before we move on to the next one? No? Okay, all good. So let's move on. Snigdha, if you can go ahead and take the next question. Yeah.
So with all this talk on ESG, what if your best supplier is not meeting the criteria? Then how do you handle such a situation? Anyone on the panel?
Yeah, can I start?
Yeah, go ahead now.
In our organization, we have been given a lot of KPIs around ESG, okay, but it's always a balance between what we need from the supplier and what the supplier is able to deliver. Yes, ESG has become the topmost selection criteria, but in the scoring section, it is always a balance between the key, the key requirement from the supplier. For example, right now we are doing a facility management tender. In that, we have put a heavy focus on ESG because we want to make sure they are treating their people well, they are building the governance around the people management, how they keep their resources, how well they treat them, how well their accommodations are kept, whether they are sourcing the resources from diverse economically backward countries, catering to that. Then the second aspect was the waste management, which was very critical for us. So in Saudi, basically it's an emerging market, so we still don't have those waste segregation. So that was the most important part of the selection criteria. So it all depends on how much weightage you are giving to the ESG requirements, depending on the type of services. So in the printing category, we make sure that they are using recycled papers, and we don't print unless required. So I feel it's a balance between your core requirement of the supplier and the ESG focus vision of your organization.
Thank you, Nita, for that. Anybody who would like to add to this?
Yeah, Nanda. Nanda, I think, wanted to speak. Yeah. Go ahead, Nanda.
Okay. Thanks. No, I think it's very important for people in supply chain to understand ESG is not just a set of questionnaire. You send them to a supplier and ask them to fill up or tick or send some documents. So this is how it has evolved in the last few years, where you have included a big topic on ESG in your audit, and then you include that in RFQ. Do you meet this? Do you meet that? I think people have to understand in their own organization, what is the value of ESG? What is the vision? What the objective of ESG for that organization before they define the requirements or criteria towards their suppliers, as Nita mentioned. So it's very easy to interact with supplier to say, see, this is my objective. I would like to know if you can meet and help to meet me into meeting that objective, because then the only things will become more clear. ESG will not be all talk. When people understand what EES and G stands for and what's the level of requirements we have to meet, and then the best supplier, if you have gone through a proper process, and they can't be a best supplier without meeting ESG. So the ESG is now part and parcel of your own company. So you need to realize and develop them to say your whatever it is, environment or sustainability things or governance. There are a lot of regulatory acts also which are required. But again, I see the biggest challenge is sending a questionnaire across by email and asking them to answer, or sending some RFQ with lot of can you meet this, can you meet that, is not going to solve the problem. This will be just floating around on paper instead of actually sitting down with the supplier to say, see, this is my objective, this is why I'm in the business, and these are my aims. Can you meet this? So that will help the situation, in
Thank
my
you, Nanda.
opinion.
That's a brilliant perspective, and that's a brilliant takeaway from that. I understand, Peter, you had also raised your hand. Would you please do add to this
Yeah,
question?
certainly. I think it's again a very good question. I think I would say no. You don't drop the supplier immediately, of course, if they don't meet the criteria. I think you wouldn't enter a new supplier if they don't meet certain criteria. But to me, the best frameworks I've seen, it depends on the criteria. So there's certain criteria which are not negotiable. You would say, obviously anything related to forced labor or child labor or anything like that, you would absolutely expect to see an immediate improvement in the situation, or you would exit the supplier. There's others where you work with them and you enable them to meet the criteria. If they can put forward a solid plan and a timeline to meet the criteria where they don't match up, we would absolutely work with the supplier to get there, and we would not exit them for sure. But as mentioned, some not negotiables where you would clearly say you can't work with a certain supplier.
That's wonderful. Thanks, Peter. Sheldon, please do add to this question.
Yeah, I will do. Great question, Yanisa. I really like it. And just following what Peter said, do you drop the supplier? No, that's certainly not the first thing to do, that's for sure. And understanding what you mean by best, that's also important. And the materiality of the breach as well. Again, Peter, what you just said, really important. You look at some of the social components of ESG, they are kind of binary in the way they need to be policed. You don't use child labor, et cetera, et cetera. These are binary, yes, no. If you do, it's a deal breaker. Whereas the environmental aspects, for example, are more of a journey. Obviously, we've got science-based targets, et cetera, but still, it's a journey. So it's not a black and white question. It's very grey. So I think understanding the materiality of of those breaches, if you will, that's very, very important, and helps you define the way forward. But I would say absolutely no, you don't just drop a supplier straight away.
That's good. Thanks, Sheldon. Anne, I see your hand raised. Would you like to add to this? Okay, it must be a glitch. Did you want to add?
Yeah, I just added, and yet I think no. My answer is no. I cannot drop it. However, we need to come back to criteria. So, why the best but cannot meet our criteria? So, is criteria built right on our demanding on the end user department, or the build is far away, or our company's strategy is changed? And if you have a base already cannot meet criteria because of the company strategy change, so you need to hand over, right? You have two options. First, hand over to the new thing with the criteria. Second, ask them to develop them to reach the criteria. So I think that if we say best already, we name it wrong. And we need to deep dive on how and why the best but cannot be our criteria. And case by case, we should review, we should action so that we can protect our operation and protect our business on cost, service and everything related and financial also. Yeah.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you for your comment. Max, over to you for the next question.
Thank you very much, Snigdha. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. We have quite a number of questions coming in, and we only have 6 minutes left in our session. So I'd like to get each of you to respond quickly in the most concise way. So let's move on to the next one. There's a question here. So in APAC, a lot of relationships are informal. How do you balance that with performance metric? Quick response from anyone? Just raise your hand so I know what you want to speak. Yeah. Anybody? Go ahead. Just go ahead and jump in. Yeah.
Sorry,
I
that's
think
the question again.
On the screen, in the middle. Yeah, I'm going to jump in. That's a great question, really great question. That was the history of SRM: informal, subjective, anecdotal, unmanageable, which is why often it was deferred, right, in favour of traditional approaches that were KPI managed. Really, really good question. The tech has made it better, okay? We're able to take the fact that we live in this operational space has led to this kind of informal kind of standing, but the tech has changed that, meaning the data in that space is now manageable. Once we can manage it, we can measure it. If we can measure it, we can drive value from it. So it's unlocked the value from the operational space. It's a very, very big space for us. Leads on to the whole AI discussion. I'm not sure we're going to get time for it though, Max, are we?
Okay. Thank you, Sheldon. Yeah, Nita, yeah, you wanted to respond to this, yeah.
No, as I think Sheldon addressed that, it's all about data. If you have the data, we can measure, we can monitor, and we can improve.
Okay.
Data is a key part.
Good. All right. Anybody else on this question?
Yeah, quick one, Max. I think, I don't know what's the context of this question, but I would slightly disagree with the relationships are informal, because I've been last 30 years worked and developed supply chain across Asia Pacific. Of course, the relationships are also built informally, but it's not a substitute for performance metric. In fact, they adhere to contracts, they adhere to the metrics. We spent weeks of discussion agreeing on KPIs. So I don't know what's the background for this question, but of course the positive point in working with Asia Pacific companies is that you get to build up a relationship on an informal basis. Also, it's an add-on. It's not always formal, it's an add-on, but the performance metrics, they're really best working with Asia Pacific companies. So that's my answer to this.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's move on maybe to the next question. We have a few more minutes. Brian is asking, do any of you actually co-develop with suppliers, or is it more talk than real collaboration? Yeah, Peter.
Yeah, I think Max, we highlighted a bit earlier on, just with our phone cases, we have to collaborate because often the suppliers will have the information and important information way before we do. They get the information through their networks. They will tell us with a new model phone what will work and what will not work. So absolutely, we co-develop with our suppliers in the phone case space. We do our own design and we have a big product development team, but we absolutely rely on our suppliers to develop product together.
Okay, cool. Anybody else? Yeah, Anne?
Yes, and actually in my time during procurement life, I work in the rural area, and that's when we don't have too much choice to choose the big supplier. Then we treat our supplier as a team, a stakeholder in the company, and the thing we need to do is that develop with them from A to Z, from how they manage the people in our facility, how they do the automation with us. So I think that the collaboration should come from the mature agreement and aligned on the targets of both sides in the same boat. So we developing give me many achievements in procurement, even for the business. During my time in the rural area, there is no choice. We have a little choice of supplier.
Okay, good. Maybe let's take one more question before we wrap up. I'd like to bring this question. This is a question from Deepali, who's asking, how do you cope up with the changing policies when you have global suppliers? Peter? Make sure to unmute. You're muted, Peter.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So it depends on which policies we're talking about. Obviously, the tariffs is the big one at the moment. So how do we cope with that? That's a really interesting one. Particularly with China tariffs, we've been working with our suppliers very closely. Do we hold orders for a certain amount of time while the tariff situation sorts itself out? That's probably the biggest policy one that we see. The other one, which is really affecting us at the moment, is the precious metal exports out of China. A lot of our products have magnets in them. Magnets contain rare earths. The policy on rare earths in China was implemented late last year, but is now being enforced with a lot more rigor. So, you know, we obviously have to work with our suppliers on that, how we navigate the exemptions for all that. So really just dealing with our suppliers. They often have the local knowledge a lot better than we do. So, yeah, we rely on them very closely, and we rely on their knowledge as well as our freight forwarders, customs brokers, all that sort of thing to fill in the puzzle for us.
Okay. Anybody else want to add? We can then. Nanda, you wanted to add something here?
Yes. I think you read my face. Now, the two things. One is it's all about cost. So we shouldn't be so short-sighted. We should always bear in mind what's the total cost of ownership. You know, lifetime TCOs is the mantra of a supply chain. The second is, as I mentioned earlier, we can't be changing suppliers based on policies. Policies do change. So we need to develop supply chains which are sort of policy tolerant supply chain. So that means we should be able to move around products, move around things in a very easy and agile manner, so that at this particular instant you are always in a best cost model. So you can't be coping. It's not called coping. It's you need to get out of coping into managing and predicting, and then so then only you are getting a step closer to developing a reliable supplier and reliable reliance in the reliability in the supply chain.
All right. With that, I want to thank you again for being with us today. This was a great discussion. We didn't have time to, again, take all those questions being asked the live Q&A, but no worries. We will organize something we do on different topics at many of our events that we run. We can organize a follow-up session on the same topic. So let us schedule another session on SRM, probably towards the end of September or in October, and I will keep you posted again on the next discussion. I want to thank again all the audience and all those great questions for being with us today. Thank you again to Nita, Nanda, and Peter, Lamiaa, Sheldon, and Snigdha, my co-host, for being with us and help me to moderate the discussion. It was interesting. And again, if you missed part of the discussion, this has been recorded. So we will make the replay available within the next 24 hours so you can watch and rewatch as much as you want. So thank you again for all of you for being with us, taking the time to share your insights. And again, we look forward to see you at our next discussion on SRM. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.